So I was in a relationship with a gentleman, and it was really exhibiting some really destructive emotions in my life. It was a very stressful relationship, and a lot of the time I was incredibly angry and frustrated, insecure, controlling, and I had all these very unrealistic expectations of what a relationship should look like. So after about 6 months in relationship with this young gentleman, I started to exhibit some physiological changes in my body, and I'd lost about a third of my hair. I had really severe gastrointestinal issues. I had chronic fatigue. I had migraines. So I had something very symptomatic of I had symptoms of something pretty destructive and dysfunctional in my body. So I went to an endocrinologist, and he had told me that it's Hashimoto's, so it's an autoimmune disease where my body started to attack my thyroid. So all of these symptoms was because of that. And I did some research, and I found out it's stress-related illness, and my endocrinologist continued to tell me that it was a genetic disorder and that it ran in my family. So I did some research on my family lineage, and it turns out that there is no thyroid conditions in my family. So after having found that out, he had said to me that you're going to need to take Synthroid for the rest of your life, and this genetic disease is something you're going to have to manage. And it was the information he was giving me was very finite, and it sounded like there was no possibility of me not having to take medication for the rest of my life. And I decided at that moment in time, I made a decision that I didn't really want to succumb to that and be medicated for the rest of my life. And when I reflected, I became very conscious of some of these unconscious programs that I had been running. That caused a lot of stress in my body, that really created imbalance in my life. So I was continuously running around my life, especially in this previous relationship, like a saber-toothed tiger was clipping at my heels, and that's how I was living my life. So very imbalanced. And I realized, after reflecting on my past, about who I was being in all of those moments, this angry, frustrated, insecure person. And I realized that at some level, it was me who had created this sickness in my body. It was the thoughts I was thinking, it was the behaviors I was exhibiting, and it was the actions that I was taking that really created this stress-related illness in my body and started to cause the breakdown in my body. So I continued on this journey, and I'd started learning about Dr. Dispenza's work, and I set a very firm intention that I didn't want to be a victim to my circumstances, and that I really wanted to heal my body of this condition, because the mind that creates illness is the exact same mind that creates wellness. So in understanding all of this, I realized that if a new personality can create a new personal reality, well, then I was going to have to change everything about myself in order to heal my body and stop reaffirming that this even exists in my life at all. So I started waking up at 4:30 every morning, and I would sit and I would meditate, and I would continuously move that energy, pull the mind out of the body every single morning at 4:30, and just some really remarkable things started to happen. I looked at all the beliefs that really drove me to become this angry, irritated, very annoyed person all the time, and I thought, well, what beliefs really drove me to act in this way? Because the ex-boyfriend didn't do anything to me. It was I who completely chose to become this person who was so unlike myself in my previous relationships. So I knew I took full responsibility for that. So every morning I would wake up and I would make sure that I would sit and I would just be with these circumstances, and I knew I could change. I knew I could heal. I set a very clear intention that this was not going to be a part of my life ever again. So I continuously did that. I worked on myself. I worked on myself. I was relentless, and I was uncompromising to my desire to heal my body of this imbalance that I had created. So after about 6 months, I stopped taking medication, and I said, I can do this. This is not something that I want to be part of my life. I can do this. I stopped taking medication. I just decided that my life would become a science project. So after about 6 months, I went back to the doctor, and they took my blood, and he said, well, what have you been doing? And I said, well, explained a little bit about what I've been doing, and I set this intention. I didn't want this to be a finite part of my life. So everything showed up normal, and I was happy, I was healthy. There was nothing in my environment that could ever trigger that emotional reaction ever again. I had changed all of my beliefs that had driven me to become that person living in the survival emotions of stress. And I had completely changed my personality. I then started living a complete different personal reality, and the condition in my body just disappeared. And I really attribute it to Dr. Dispenza's work in really understanding the different thought processes and changing those parts of me that were really keeping me limited and sick and ill. And it's just been a really, really remarkable journey of personal transformation. And just so many miraculous things have happened ever since I started to really understand what true transformation is, and the ability to, I'd never reverted back to the old person, the old Susie that existed, and just my life has really flourished because of this work, and it's been quite an extraordinary journey. So I am honoured and privileged to be able to share this information. So thank you.